A moment for the history books. Welcome back to On the Record. I am happy to be joined right now by an outspoken Bahamian leader with a devoted following. We welcome tonight leader of the Coalition of Independence, Lincoln Bain. Mr. Bain, welcome to On the Record.
Thank you for having me.
All right, listen, Lincoln, you've been a fierce critic of both the government and the official opposition. But before we jump in, I want us to take a look at this excerpt from the Prime Minister's national address late Wednesday afternoon.
This is a serious constitutional moment, requiring serious consideration by serious people. In attempting to emulate the efforts of Sir Lyndon Pinling and Sir Milo Butler, the opposition shows they fundamentally do not understand the meaning of that moment or their responsibilities in this moment. There'll be time for politics, but today was not that time. The moment called for statesmanship, not self-indulgent theatrics. Their conduct in the House today cannot be justified. We hope that they will learn to be more serious about the business of the people. We should confront our most difficult challenges as one national community.
All right, Lincoln, I want to get your initial thoughts on the events of December 4th and what we just heard there from the Prime Minister.
Well, I'll start by saying with the Prime Minister, I'm not sure who wrote his speech, but Sir Milo Butler didn't throw the mace out of the House. He never did. It was Sir Lyndon Pinling who did so. And Sir Milo Butler threw the hourglass out of the House, I think it was in 1956, when they restricted the speakers in the House, the MPs, to 12 minutes. And so I think the Prime Minister should know better. But it's time for a shakeup in this country. And so I appreciate what the FNM tried to do to wake up this country. We needed a good shaking up. And I think that shaking up started last week when me and a lot of our supporters went to the House of Assembly. And in the House of Assembly, we called for the Commissioner of Police to step down, and we decried what they were doing to the opposition because we thought it was wrong. And then we went down and defended the opposition. And in his press conference, I spoke to him in strong terms. I felt I had to shake him up.
So that was support from your side.
Yeah, we supported them outside to the media. Yeah. And then when we came into his press conference, I spoke to him in strong terms. I let him know that he has to stop being weak and that he has to use the powers of the opposition and of the PAC.
Did we see that on Wednesday?
That was last week, Wednesday.
Yeah. But did we see that strength yesterday? Would you say that was the show of strength?
Right, and that's where I was going to go with that.
Yeah.
We saw them do something because I think they felt that they had to do something because of the way we addressed them. And I think they felt like we showed them up. We just were trying to get them to do their jobs. Yeah. And they didn't do their jobs. We don't need the opposition being activists. I'll be honest with you. I appreciate them shaking things up, but we don't need you to be activists. We need you to do your job. For example, they have the powers of the PAC. And so everything he complains about normally, he can just use the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, and summons documents, summons bank accounts, summons people, subpoena, and summons people to come before him. This is what we need you to do. We need real action. Sir Lyndon Pinling didn't just protest, etc. He would jump on a plane and go before the Queen because we were under the Queen at the time. He would go before her. He would use his powers to lead the opposition and force the government to do certain things. That's what you need. There was a time when Perry Christie disagreed with an appointment made by Hubert Ingram to the Senate. As an independent senator that he was appointing. And Perry Christie said, no, that person isn't independent, that's an FNM. And Ingram said, well, I consulted with you, that's all I have to do. Perry said, no, I'll take you to court. And Perry Christie won that case. Yeah. This is what we need opposition doing, not theatrics. We need you in the House of Assembly and in the courts, etc., defending the people.
I want to ask you, the Prime Minister announced the resignation of one and the appointment of another commissioner in just hours of each other. Was it the right thing for the commissioner to step down, Commissioner Clayton Fernando? Was that the right thing?
Yes, I think it was the right thing because he's been failing under this entire administration. Crime has gone out of control. We've had a lot of complaints about police officers and their actions. A lot of police had to be arrested. And so the failure has come under him. When the team is doing bad, the coach gets fired. not necessarily the team. And so he, as a leader, should have taken that stand. And if he didn't, then the prime minister should have moved to have him removed a long time ago. I think that it was too delayed, but it was the right thing to do. And so we can get some fresh minds on this.
When do you think he should have been removed or resigned? And I think that should have happened.
I think as soon as the previous scandal came out with the voice notes with another senior police officer, I think at that point...
You're talking about Michael Johnson.
Yes, Michael Johnson. I think at that point, when that happened, it shows that a lot of things, and that wasn't the first thing, a lot of things are happening on your watch, and maybe you're not cut out for this particular position. And so we may need to put you in another role, maybe be ambassador to England or do something else. But this may not be the role for you.
He's out. ACP Kendino Knowles, she's in. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on the historic appointment of the first woman to take the helm?
Yeah, so I don't think that person should be promoted to any position or appointed because of their sex, whether you're man or woman. Mm-hmm. I think that she is going to be a commissioner, and she has the potential to be a good commissioner. And so I think that should be our focus because she has risen to the ranks on her merits. And so I want to congratulate her on that. And the problem, though, I have is that people are appointed to these positions, but they're still under the control of the government. And we need to change our system. It needs to come to the point now where these kinds of positions are elected positions, not just an independent commission doing it because they just put their cronies on these boards to do it.
But that's going to require some change to the way.
And that's what we're proposing. We're proposing to change the way our government is set up. And so we're going to have elected officials. I had commissioners of police who have complained to me about the things they wanted to do, and they could not do it because their hands was tied because it seemed like the government wanted to go in a different direction. That's a constitutional position, and they should have the power to be independent, their own budget to a certain amount, so they don't have to depend on the prime minister. The same thing for the chief justice, so that we can have independent persons. Now, there needs to be more than just the power of the prime minister to appoint these positions. The prime minister should be able to appoint who he wants in that position, but we should have another body that investigates these persons and vet them, like they do in the U.S., where the Senate has that responsibility, but it's done publicly, so we know what's going on.
Are we prepared for vetting?
Yes, we are.
If at that level we're beginning the vetting process, most will expect that will happen across the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. Are we ready for that?
I think we have to do it. We're now saying that there's a culture of corruption, and if we want to stop that culture of corruption, we're going to have to do that. We have to vet persons in senior positions.
I'm going to come back to that, but I want to get your thoughts before we move on about who should replace the ACP. She was in charge of the northern region up until the prime minister announced her appointment. Any thoughts on who should take that position?
There are quite a few very qualified persons. I don't want to call their name because then they might say I'm promoting them. That might hurt them. But there are several young persons who are there right now who actually are qualified to be commissioner of police. In my view, there's some educated persons and very young persons, some with law degrees, etc., that can do it. Charles Welhana is a good person. Yeah, I call his name. Robinson, ACP Robinson is a good young person. The next generation who could come up, they actually qualify, according to some people, to be commissioner of police. So they can do well in Grand Bahama.
What do you think is the mandate for the new commissioner from the Bahamian people?
The first thing is to gain the trust of the people. Without the trust of the people, a police department cannot function. And so without that, you're not going to get help from the people if they feel that if they come forward and talk to you, that could be leaked. If they report, someone they love to you, that they could be abused. And so the first thing is to regain the trust of the people more than anything else. And then we have to root out the corruption. But we believe that the corruption comes from the top, from the politicians. So people ask me, how are you going to clean up corruption in these civil services? They have people who are still going to be in there. I believe that that the vast majority, more than 99%, are really good people who want to see this country prosper. And there are a few bad apples that the politicians put in positions so that they could do their bidding. And you saw examples of that with the immigration situation that we exposed. There were persons in position in immigration who did not want what was happening to happen. And of course, you saw where they spoke out. And the minister was eventually moved. We believe that all of the ministries, all of the forces have good people that want this country to prosper, and they're tired of the political corruption.
In his own national address this past Sunday, the former commissioner revealed intentions for a full revamp of the force with civilian oversight. And I think you alluded to that in what you just said there. But is this the direction that the new commissioner should be headed in? Do you believe that that is what is necessary to get us to where we need to be?
Yes, we need to have professional civilian oversight, because it's difficult to have the police investigating police, and people don't trust you if that's the case. You can't go to me to complain about my brother. You know, that's how people feel. And so they don't trust the process. And so, yes, that's a start, and we need to be able to do that. And it needs to be extremely independent, and it needs to have persons from both sides of the field on it. Otherwise, the trust won't be there.
In this recent U.S. indictment implicating senior law enforcement officers, is it the only reason that citizens have a certain level of mistrust when it comes to law and order in the country?
No. There are people who have experienced a lot of different things on personal levels. People are always complaining about circumstances they deal with. You have police officers who complain that politicians interfere with cases. They get instructions from certain people. I was a police officer officially for 10 years. I experienced that personally. But the general public has seen a lot of things happening that caused them to not trust the situation. But it was mostly coming from the top. The first thing that happened was a commissioner who was reportedly a friend of the prime minister was appointed. Now, we don't have a problem with you appointing someone who might happen to be a friend if there's merit to appointing them. But then what happened is another red flag, which was you gave him money for a settlement. It wasn't a court case decision. You just settled and gave him money and didn't disclose how much it is. Now, all public servants are supposed to disclose their income to make sure we don't have corruption. So why is it a problem for you to tell us how much money it is? And so that causes a lot of mistrust that he is just a puppet of the prime minister.
Has this further polarized the country along party lines? And with that, how do we restore faith and confidence in our police force?
I think once we get the right leadership of the police force and leadership of the country, we won't have to worry about these things anymore. We need a government that is going to make these department and divisions of our society independent. We don't need the justice system dependent on the prime minister for a budget or solely for appointment without vetting. The same thing with the police force. We need independence. We need to elect our senior officials in this country, chiefs of police on different islands. And that's why we have a policy called island states and city government. We want to take power away from the politician and give it to the people so that the money made on your island stays on your island. That gives you an independence. You pay a royalty to the central government. And so you're able to do what you need to do and not depend on a politician. City government does the same thing. It allows the people of the country to put in place a mayor, have their own budget, and do what they need and not have to depend on any politician. And this is going to restore trust. They know who the crooked contractors are, and they know who to hire. Yeah. And so let them do that.
Right.
And the money should
because
stay
they're in the communities.
Yes,
so
they're in
they
the communities.
Know and they understand, right?
Right. And they know who should be their chief of police because they would know who is the crooked chief of police or police officer and who is not. And so let them choose. Give the power to the people.
What should the Prime Minister and his cabinet be doing right now in this moment, to restore trust?
Prepare for election. They need to call an election right away.
Is it that serious?
It's that serious. It has been a traumatic failure. There are people who feel that this is worse than it was in the 1980s when we were embarrassed internationally. And so I think that they should call it a day, like Minnis did, and just move on and hope that the people will, they can make a transformation and then come back 20 years from now.
I want to get back to what you just said, embarrassment. But before that, is this situation that we are witnessing right now, what we saw on December 4th, the events leading up to December 4th, is it not symptomatic of what some are seeing as potentially rampant corruption?
Yes, the country, corruption is endemic, but it's not for the people. We want to see what is right. We want to see what is good. It's the politicians who keep all of the control, and they determine everything. They want everything to go through them. And that's where the problem is in this country. We have to loosen it up, and we have to give power to the people. That's the only way you're going to end corruption, because you're going to have accountability at every single level that you can now monitor. You won't have politicians in Nassau determining what happens in the family island, who goes to the family island. You won't have the nepotism, etc., from one man or a few politicians determining what happens in the country. That's how we're going to clean this up.
We also saw the tabling of the Independent Commission of Investigations Bill 2024. National Security Minister Bain brought it to Parliament on Wednesday. Your initial thoughts on the proposed law? I know you've talked about what needs to be done, how we move forward. Is this the way?
I support it in principle. Sometimes they put these little hooks in the laws and loopholes, so that they can still have their way. And so once I see the law, then I can determine whether it's a good law or not. But the name of it and what they say is the intent sounds good at this time. But I haven't seen the law yet. I'm going to look it up. But definitely we need to have more independent oversight. I've been calling for this for years.
Yeah. You said something earlier. You used the word embarrassment. The story of the U.S. indictment that we saw from the Department of Justice, as well as Wednesday's proceedings, now making international headlines. One of our international partners, Reuters, had the story published last night on its wire, which meant that went to networks across the world. We see the headlines today, right? Some calling it an embarrassment, as you said. How worried should we be about the fallout?
I have friends and counterparts all over the world. In the Caribbean, there are a lot of politicians who are now reaching out to me. They say what the COI is doing is inspiring them to stand up and to make change, and third parties, etc. And I have persons in the U.S., investors, etc. What was very curious was that an investor reached out to me and sent me a clip of a video that no one in the news covered. And it was the same video of the House proceedings. And he said, no one noticed this. He said that one of the members of Parliament, he's talking about Adrian White, went over to the window while the Prime Minister was speaking, just before they did the macing. And he went over to the window, and it appears that he opened the window and prepared the way. And then the whole House stopped because he was at the window. You could see the Deputy Prime Minister look at him like, what is he doing? And the Prime Minister stopped like, what's going on? And he was asked to have a seat, and he went and sat down. And shortly after that, Shannon Dawn came, grabbed the mace, went to the window, and threw it out. That window is normally locked as far as I know, or should be, but no one noticed that happened. What does that mean? That means that was all staged. It didn't happen because she was refusing to let them speak.
So you think it was orchestrated?
It was
a concerted effort?
It clearly was. And sometimes there's no problem with that, but this was clearly planned to go in there and cause a disruption, and it was staged. And the fact that Adrian went over to the window and opened the window first suggests that they planned that. But my biggest problem with that is I told Pintard, I gave him instructions to be strong, stop being weak. If that is going to happen, you as the leader should have been the one to do it. It is disgraceful that he allowed his subordinate to do that. It means that he doesn't have the courage to take a strong stance.
I want to get back to the criticisms, but I want to ask, do you see this as a turning point in the political landscape?
Not that particular action. I don't see it as a turning point because it's more of the same. It's more of a distraction. Again, like I said in the beginning, we need the opposition fighting for the people with their powers that they are given. All right, using the powers of the PAC, etc. That's what we need. We don't need a show and a distraction. And I think after I asked him to use the powers of the opposition, this was used as a distraction to make people forget and use emotions and hype.
Lincoln, a lot of people may be disillusioned by politics.
Yes.
By virtue of what's been happening recently, but also successively. How do you tackle this issue today, though, without it seemingly coming across as simply political campaigning?
Well, you have to campaign politically, and politics means the affairs of the people. That's what it means. And so you have to deal with this politically. And what we really need is change. We've had 50 years, Kendino, 50 years of the same thing. After 50 years, we're still talking about getting proper water and electricity. My Lord, proper services. The family islands are all neglected. Still talking about ambulances and fire trucks. My God, 50 years later, you've not built one hospital since the UBP time, not one. We're having this conversation 50 years. We need a change. Bahamians are living on beaches. And so we don't need grandstanding, not by anyone, not including us. We need real change that's going to transform this nation. And that's what we are proposing, real change, to give the power to the people so they can do it themselves.
Speaking about what you're proposing, and it's my final question to you tonight, Lincoln, I want to speak hypothetically. Let's say it was your party on the opposing side in Parliament on December 4th. How would COI have handled this?
It would not have gotten to that, to the point where they needed to do what they did. I would have been holding their foot to the fire. I would have been tabling legislation. I would have been using the powers of the PAC. I would have known how much money was given to the Commissioner of Police. I would have known what they were doing with our loan money. I would have known all of it. The opposition has certain power. He can subpoena them. He can summons them. And if they don't come, they can be fined and sent to jail. That's the law. If they give him any false or deceitful information, they can go to jail. 2 years in jail, $600 fine. So he has power, but it's like they don't want to use it for some reason. It's almost like they're in it together. We just want to put on a show, but we don't want to hit the other side too hard. It's time for real change. I feel that the PLP and FNM are one and the same, and they've been working together to fail us for all these years. So we would not have had to get to that point because we would have used the powers of a real leader of the opposition, like Pinlin did back in the day and others have done, to bring the change we need to see. All and right. I think that's why they're afraid of us in the House of Assembly.
Listen, perhaps, perhaps. Lincoln, thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. That was leader of the Coalition of Independence Party, Lincoln Bain, on the record tonight. When we come back, we share our final thoughts. Stay with us.
Welcome to Doctors Hospital West Imaging Suite, where advanced tech meets compassionate care. Our friendly staff guides you on a journey to better health. Through cutting-edge technology, we prioritize accurate diagnostics. Our imaging team ensures your comfort, while our detailed x-rays and advanced CT scans aid precise diagnosis. Our dedicated team ensures minimal wait time and guarantees prompt and efficient care. For more information, visit our website or give us a call. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care, now in the West.
Best customer service, on-time payout, clean environment, and I will always take my chances with chances.
That's what I'm talking about. You better take a chance with chances, all right? And I'm here with this beautiful lady. Her name is Deja Bethel, and she is the recipient of a brand new 2024 Suzuki Swift.
2024 Suzuki Swift. Well, I've been a customer with you guys for a very, very long time, and my luck has always been on with chances.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm Michaela Kerr. I'm an 18-year-old freshman at the University of the Bahamas, and I'm a computer science major. I'm also the NT Corporation's Youth Ambassador